All right, hi everyone. I thought I'd do something, fun because I just got this deck and I'm dying to dive into it, but I thought I'd share it with you guys too. So I saw this deck as they were stocking it at the store, Amityville Apothecary, for those of you who are curious. And I was like, what is that? And they're like, we don't even have a price on it yet. And I'm like, but I need it. So I have it, long story short. So I wanted to talk about this deck because it is and it is not a traditional deck. The minor arcana read the same. The major arcana have some really interesting differences, and I want to sort of briefly go through this. But the quick version of the minor arcana, your aces are, your ghosts are your swords. That's your air element. Saucers are your earth element. The knockers are your fire element. You're going to see wands, and I love that there's like so many Sasquatches on this one. And then your water element, your cups, is going to be portals. So they have this all spread out, and it's not a pips deck. It's actually kind of nice. What they do with the court cards is the pages are fans, which you can imagine the idea of young, enthusiastic. The knights are going to be people who do things, the hunters. And then we have what we consider the queen, and they don't do the gender thing. Queens are the advocates, and kings are the skeptics. And I thought that was interesting that we had this idea of somebody who really leaned into it and somebody who brought a more rational, analytic approach. I thought that was kind of a neat way to approach those things that weren't doing the traditional tarot way of handling the court cards. So these are our court cards, and you can see that they have these nice silver edges. They're very shiny. As we know, the edges are rounded. We do love that. It's a good, so I have big hands. I have huge hands for a woman, and they're very easy for me to shuffle. So you know how lately there's been a tendency to have these massively oversized decks. This is not one of those massively oversized decks, but I wanted to show you guys the major arcana. Let me make sure that this is in the frame so you know what it looks like. So, of course, this makes sense. This is our Fool. The Magician is the remote viewer, which kind of makes sense as this idea of somebody who is successfully able to tap into knowledge beyond the norm, if you will. The Bell Witch is going to be the High Priest, which is an interesting choice, and it kind of leans more into the sort of the legends. Are you being gaslit about something? Are you being tormented? Did somebody make a bad deal in the past that you're having to deal with the consequences of? The Empress is La Llorona. I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. Please don't hate me. Which is, if you know the cryptid, La Llorona is this woman who, I believe, her children died and it was her fault, or people thought it was her fault, and she now wanders around calling for other people's children, and you can hear her crying. She scares the heck out of me. She is the Empress, so we do have that idea of motherhood, but you see this is a sort of dark deck, so this is a much darker aspect of it, and maybe that explains the Bell Witch as well. For the Emperor, we have Indrid Cold, which I love. If you've never read the Mothman Prophecies and you love this stuff, well, first of all, you've probably already read it. But if you haven't read the Mothman Prophecies, it is such a great book. And there's this whole canon of knowledge about Indrid Cold. And he works so well as the Emperor, as this guy who has this sort of secret knowledge and this power that he's going to tell you what's going to happen and he's going to be right. But he's also not really, he acts like he's your friend, but he's not. Number 5, this is where we start getting a little weird. This is the Hierophant. I mean, this whole deck is weird, but I mean, not in alignment with traditional tarot. We have the Jackalope as the Hierophant, which when I look at this card, I think about it, the way it connects to the Hierophant energy. I mean, we do have the key. It's sort of the idea of your native land, your foundation. What is the spiritual and sort of lore foundation of where you are and what you find yourself in? So I think this is a card about where you are, not in a sort of a metaphysical sense, not in a sort of like life journey sense, but physically, what is the connection to the place where you currently are? And that in and of itself has a sort of spiritual connection, the spirituality of the land. That's what I'm going for. Thank you. The Puka, definitely not a traditional lover's card. The puka is a sort of supernatural creature, which is dual natured, which is why I think they plugged it in as the lover's card, because we do generally see the idea of two. So this seems to be more of and we do have these, beautiful flowers. So it's kind of a happy card. And some of these do have, like, this is the constellation of Gemini. So this is a pretty well thought out deck. I love that. The puka is this sort of creature of a dual nature. So I think it's asking you sort of like, something about dual natures going on. 7, the nomoship for the chariot. I get the idea of the chariot and movement, but this is more of an origin story rather than the standard traditional energy of a chariot, which is bringing you someplace you might not be ready for. I mean, maybe it does. Maybe it does. Now I'm talking myself into it. All right. 8, strength. This does not look like a traditional strength card. This is, reading up on knowledge, getting yourself that foundation, which I suppose is a kind of strength, but it is not the traditional strength card. I do like the Yeti for the Hermit, because he is wandering off by himself. So mystical, so wise. We do love that. The hoop snake is your wheel of fortune. We see this idea of the Ouroboros in multiple cultures, this idea of the cycle ending. And I love that we have the birds around the sun and the death and the life. I mean, this is a really well thought out deck, and I really love this art style. It's very Welcome to Night Vale to me without being Welcome to Night Vale. So I don't know what to do with that. Thunderbird, I was floored when I saw this card. This is a card that when I was playing the deck, when I was playing with the deck in the store, I had to get it. I live on a street that's named Thunderbird. Little trivia about me, and I did not know it's Thunderbird in a Native American language, in the indigenous language. So I guess that goes back to our jackalope. And a couple years ago, a tropical storm came through and just destroyed all of the trees in my backyard, and I was devastated. And nobody else had any damage. It was a downburst, and I just kept thinking, it's the Thunderbird. It's the Thunderbird. And literally 2 days later, is when I found out that that's what my street's name really means, and I was like, okay, what do I do with that? And we have this idea of sort of like the eternity with the Thunderbird. It's in my case, it was we are clearing away for a new start. 12, the Hanged Man, Extraction. You can read this pretty much as a traditional Hanged Man card. Somebody who's sort of like torn between the two. I keep thinking about the AWOL Nation video sale. I don't know. This just pops into my head when I see this all the time. 13, Death, the Wendigo. I love that they went Wendigo and they didn't go Skinwalker. And I love that they know that there's a difference in the guidebook that comes along with it. They don't even mention the Skinwalker because Skinwalkers are they're different. I'm not saying they're played out. They're different. And a lot of people tend to glop them together. This is a really wonderful rendition of what death is, and he is looking right at you. 14, we have Temperance, the Loch Ness Monster. We all love Nessie, and she makes her great. She's not an angel like we traditionally see for Temperance, but she definitely has that Temperance vibe, right? Not too in sight, not too out of sight, not violent, very peaceful, just wanting everybody to get along. The Nain Rouge, the Red Imp. This is a great devil card. There's a whole story about this person who turned away this red imp, and then terrible things happened to him. And I think that represents that idea of this red imp represents our darker natures, our baser natures, our vindictiveness. I think this is a really interesting take on that. Silver Bridge, you gotta bring the Mothman in for the tower, right? And we've got a little Mothy there. I call him Mothy. So we have all of this, and what I really like is this hook, right? Because we have the people falling off the tower. Here we have this hook that I know if you're an intuitive reader, you're going to be like, Mothman, right? We've got, cars going into this. They have the lightning storm. We have the trees. We do have a lot to work with in a sort of intuitive read, and that hook just keeps grabbing my attention. The star, we have Sirius, the sort of home star for people who are star seeds and so on. The Flatwoods Monster is your moon card, which is all about illusion, deception, just general weirdness, right? 19, the Anunnaki. I'm not sure I'm in love with this for the sun card, because, I mean, not that I'm like, I need my naked baby, but the Anunnaki, I don't have a lot of positive associations with the Anunnaki. I tend to view them as not very benevolent for humankind, but what do I know? But nonetheless, this is your sun card, and you can see some good sun symbolism. We have our Sirius, constellation, this idea of the sort of the bright stars that set us on our way. And then, of course, Judgment is the Men in Black, and of course, Judgment being sort of from above. For those of you who, my favorite is the creepy Men in Black video where you see these two people who look like they have never earthed before, right? Walking around in these black suits. They captured it almost flawlessly in this card. It's so nice. And they just sort of walk in, and there's a lot of Men in Black around the Mothman incident as well. And so this idea that they are sending their agents in the spotlight. I love that spotlight idea, especially as a Judgment card, to sort of do justice. And of course, we also know the movie Men in Black, in which case the Men in Black were the heroes, but they were keeping secrets for a reason. So I think there's a lot to mine in this card. What I really love about decks is when you can read it traditionally, but you can also be like, wow, this is a new take. And so that's one of the things I'm digging about this deck. And then, of course, the Wheel of Fortune is the Hollow Earth. This idea of this huge, unified, magnificent system, right? This whole, like, not the flat Earth, but the whole hollow Earth, that there's a whole world inside that we haven't gone into. We might have achieved this one. There's a whole bunch more waiting to be discovered. So I thought this was a really great deck. And I can't wait to use it, but I wanted to show it to you first. And it does come with, and let me whip it out. It does come with your standard guidebook that does have color. And does have a little explanation about how it sees things. And it's really kind of neat. Let's sort of stop on this one. So we have, I'm trying to make sure you don't get glare. We have an upright, a reversed phenomena. For each card, they give you an idea of what kind of supernatural phenomena might be accruing to this. And then they say sort of meditate, but I like this as a sort of intuitive reader to think about a sort of growth question. So in this case, for the bridge, what in my life am I not taking care of? Right? So it has this for all of the cards, this little bit that gives a little bit of the background and then, the phenomenon and that sort of question. So that's a great little tool to add to your tarot toolkit. So it both is and is not a traditional tarot deck. I think some of these major arcana are really going to add some interesting spins to some reading. So if this sounded like something you wanted to get yourself interested in, it is available. I don't know where you can get it off of where I live, but do consider they do ship Amityville Apothecary. I do not get paid by them in any way. I love the Men in Black on the side of the deck too. But I know that I have ordered from them and they have always been super duper service. And of course, we are not alone. I love the thoughtfulness that has gone into so many details of this deck. So I hope that and it fits so nicely. I hope that you guys enjoyed this little review. I don't know if I'm going to do deck reviews a lot, if that's going to be a thing. I just know that I really loved this deck and I wanted to show it and maybe get other people to love it too. Thanks.